they kind of gave us a deal to do something before we had an idea of what we were going to do.
Yeah, it's like they sort of throw you in the deep end philosophy.
Yeah.
And but we had three. We came. Remember, Jeffrey Katzberg called us and had said you had to. We want to make a film with John, you guys, but we don't know what. So come up with some ideas. We had three ideas.
Right.
One was the James Brubaker Beach.
Right.
One was Bob the Dinosaur.
Yeah, it was the Little Joyce book.
Yeah. And then the third was this weird half-baked original idea of a ventriloquist dummy and Vinny from Tim Toy having a road trip together. And that's the one they said, go work on that some.
And as I understand, you used to pitch each sequence to Disney one at a time, right? It wasn't like, here's the whole movie.
At first, we had never done it. They needed to approve everything. So, like, here we are working on boards. We're desperate because we are.
That's why my back hurts so bad.
How can I can't even do that anymore?
Yeah. No, but we'd all sit there and kind of make it up as we want. We knew what was going to happen generally, but we would be like, hey, what if you did this? And then Andrew would put something, and we'd hit up all these chicken scratches. And then at the end, we'd say, okay, I'll clean up this row. Andrew, you take rows 2 and 3.
Yeah.
Joe, you clean up the 4th row. So it was very much team effort. Today, by contrast, this would all be one artist going to their room and drawing.
And little did we know that was what the magic chemistry was with us. It was like a garage band. Like we took it for granted that we all got along and finished each other's sentences and enjoyed debating and arguing and coming up with something greater than ourselves. But that became the real core of what you now know as the sort of Pixar.
Sometimes there was fighting that made me uncomfortable, but
There was fighting, just getting ready for the count. So Bonnie and Andrew, as I recall, also you were part of pitching the film to our talent leads early on. What do you remember about Tom and Tim and Buzz and Woody leads and how all that went?
Tom come first? No, well, they weren't our first choices.
Oh, come on. They could be on.
But we did get there. We did get there. And we pitched to Tom first.
Yeah, I seem to think we locked Tom first.
Yeah.
I remember going down to LA
Yes.
and pitching to him.
Yeah.
And
He had just finished
we didn't
filming
know though. He
Philadelphia.
came in so skinny, and we're like, is he okay?
Yeah, yeah.
And then we found out before he left that, like, oh, it's for this
it
movie.
was actually.
Yeah. He had lost all this weight for filming the movie Philadelphia, and we talked to him and he laughed, and we showed him the test, the little test that we did,
Yeah, we
the
had
voice.
some audio from Turner and Hooch.
Right.
Animated a scene where Woody goes, no, you're eating the car.
I like the, I don't like the,
I think it's on the extras, right? We can
I'm
see it,
sorry,
but he loved that.
It's hard to project how weird and new that looked to people to show computer graphics and to show animation like that.
But I think before that, we did that test. We did an animation test.
Oh, yeah.
Because when Disney first came to me, or we were first talking about me coming on the movie as the producer, actually just to rewind for a second, I had just finished a show, the first Addams Family film, which at that time,
Let's get Adam's Family.
I was the associate producer on that film, and at that time it was the state of the art for effects work. There was no computer animation, no CG. But Disney thought, I guess Disney and Pixar, whatever, they thought that the Toy Story would be made somewhat like an effects film.
Right.
Like managing shots through a pipeline, whatever. And they thought, well, maybe I would be qualified. I mean, I just said yes, so I didn't know. But anyway, when we first started talking, I saw so we talked about it, and then I was finishing another film, and you guys were doing a test, the one with Buzz, with Buzz on the.
We've all seen that in the bonus stuff with
He was.
the globe on the dresser.
Yeah.
Ventriloquist Woody, it's really creepy.
Yeah. But you know what, I'm just saying that because when I saw that, what did I know? I said, this is gonna be really different and unusual. I think we knew when I knew then. And then you guys finished the test, and Peter Schneider, who was the head of Disney Animation at the time, called me back and said, are you still interested in this, in being a producer at Disney? And I go, absolutely. So they said, well, there's this little company up in Northern California, and they're trying to do a feature, and I think they might like you. You should go up there and meet them.
Yeah.
So I had to go to the firing squad in front of Andrew and Pete. In an interview, and he like, oh, you made a movie, okay? Now, my favorite memory of that is we go in and they said, you know, everybody takes turns.
We're gonna dance with the wolf. We're like, okay.
Everybody in the group takes turn bringing a snack, and that was Pete's turn that day, Pete. And I go in there, there's a big like toaster on the table, and Pete brought Pop-Tarts. That's what he made today, and I said, this is gonna be fun. This is really gonna be fun. That was my trial by fire.
It sounds like you saw that test and you knew in a moment, like, this is gonna be really different, really cool, and like, Jonas and Bob, you each saw something somewhere along the line, right? When did you know you had something workable here?
Well, we all went down to the screening room because they had put together the argument sequence. And we walked in, but this is a screening room where we have recycled couches. Everybody bought a couch for work.
With fleas, they have fleas.
Yeah, what do you used to do the villa?
I
Yeah,
worked
we
on,
didn't
actually,
do
I
the
did
villa.
the model packet for the Iron Man, and it was like, wow, I wonder how this goes. And of course, at the time, we weren't drawing stuff to be drawn in animation, we were drawing stuff to get built in the models so that animated. So the process was a little different, but walking in there was very exciting, and once I saw it, it blew me away. And walking in the hallway, I thought, yeah, I got a job for a little bit, this is gonna work out, because that is gonna be big.
I was at that was on, I think that was my second day. And I remember, it was my mother's birthday, and I remember having to run out and try to find a phone to call her. But Captain, you were new, but they, you know, probably, I was new, and you or somebody said, well, come in and see it, you know, see what we working on. And I sat there, I always felt like I was sort of Toy Story's first audience member in a way.
When was this?
This was November 29th, 1994, so a year almost to the day before it came out. And I sat there, you know, in one of those little chairs, and, you know, the scene started with Woody Recon, you know, that shot, and it ends with the pan of Buzz. That's where the scene ended. It was on film, and I you know, cried. It was like seeing Fantasia or Star Wars or something in my mind. And I felt the same. I didn't even know what it was. You know? And I called my mom, it was happy birthday, said, I don't know how I found this place,
But Andrew, you remember for a long time, we were under wraps. We had been working on the film already for a couple of years at that point. And nobody, the only people that were seeing what we were doing were us.
Yeah.
And then a couple of executives at Disney. They were a little bit uncertain about how, was it gonna be good? How was it gonna turn out? And then I think it was maybe about 4 or 5 months before you came on, Jonas, we had the executives from Burger King come to Pixar. Because if you want to partner with any of these companies that do the premiums, like McDonald's or Burger King or whatever, to line up with the release of the movie, you have to let them, they start about 18 months plus ahead of the proposed release. So they were the first people outside the internal group and the Disney execs who saw anything from the film, including that Army Man sequence and a couple of other sequences that we had finished. And they went nuts. They thought it was the greatest thing they'd ever seen, and all of a sudden Disney and Pixar go, we got something here. And they started like accelerating our release date. They said we wanted to come out at Thanksgiving because those were big, in those days, they didn't just release movies any old time. You release movies at Christmas and you release movies in the summer. And they accelerated I found some memos recently that said we were estimating what it would be to do a 7-month acceleration
Oh, yeah.
to release the film earlier than what we thought, and we ended up coming out in November of 1995.
Yeah, you were saying it's sort of under wraps. It wasn't like, nowadays we keep things hush hush and we announce it on D23. Back then, I mean, friends of mine from school would come up and I'd be like, hey, you want to see what we're working on? And they'd be like, no, not really. It wasn't Disney.
But we weren't sharing, you know what I'm saying, we weren't sharing in terms of,
Yeah.
I mean, even people at Disney Future Animation did see stuff
Yeah.
ahead of that. I mean,
The Iron Man was such a calling card. We were so adamant to not do a musical. We remember we decided that we wanted to get Randy Newman because we thought we loved his few scores that he had done. He can't be sentimental. He gets through sincerity through his sincerity through his stuff. And we brought him up like open, and we showed him the Iron Man sequence, and he took his wallet out, put it to the seat next to him, and said, "Do be kind to these people."
You know what else I remember about that I kept thinking about this Pixar is I saw it and I was blown away, and I just thought I saw the most perfect thing, and then the lights come up and the whole group, probably including you guys, just tore it to pieces.
Yeah.
That shot's wrong, and that shot is wrong, we could do better, and I kind of was brought into the culture of this place never stops fighting to get the best I thought it was done.
And on the Randy thing, Disney did not was nervous about the Randy moving of it all.
Yeah.
That's who, I mean, you
That
and
made us
John
feel
and
good.
Pete and, well, because they had such huge success prior to this for like Beauty and the Beast and Little Mermaid, it's more of a traditional music, but more traditional like Broadway style
Right.
music. And Randy's take on it would have been something really different. We had to really sell them on the fact that this is gonna,
Yeah.
it's gonna be different.
Just going back to Bob, Bob was freelance for a little while.
That's right, for a couple
And I remember we said, can you do some drawings on, I don't know what it was. He gave you like 2 weeks, and so he comes to the studio and he's like, yeah, I did a few drawings. And he's like, this giant pile, and he starts going through all of these great ideas, one after another, and we all kind of look at each other like, when can we get this guy?
And it was a cool time in the because you were across the bay in San Francisco. You would finish up you worked on Nightmare. Nightmare and Toy Story Night Before Christmas all being done in San Francisco. It was a cool little animation.
And when I was at Nightmare, it was like leather jackets and smoking animators. It was really, they're tough. I think people were drugged out in the alley behind the studio. I was like, oh geez, I got to Pixar and people wear shorts and they got Hawaiian shirts in the summer. I can hear a baseball bat being hit out in the park and across the street. It's like, oh my god, this is so nice. It was so much fun.
It wasn't a traditional movie making outfit.
No,
No. That's what freaked me out.
Well, we modeled, so many of us were from Cal Arts, which was a very Discovery or Just film school.
Yeah.
That we just wanted it to feel like film school or art school. We wanted to keep that adventuresome, courageous, be brave to be as stupid as you can, atmosphere as we could.
Which must have been scheduling.
Oh, yeah, yeah, it was a little unpleasant. I remember there was one art review, well, I was like, there's so much to get through, and we just gotta get through all of it. There's not enough time, there's never enough time. Again, let's remember accelerating the schedule by 7 months of something we did not know how to even do on time, right? So it was like figuring out as we go, let's move it up. And then I remember trying to keep a schedule and exiting the room for a minute, coming back and everyone had gone. And Bob, you all had left out the back to trip me, and you'd gone up goofing off at the mechanics bank or something at the back door because it was funny. Let's we're stressed out about the schedule. But there was this feeling of like every moment being infused with fun, even though it was kind of up against this impossible.
If you go ahead one slide, the other producer, Ralph Guggenheim.
Go back.
Yeah, if you can
This
go
is
to
the one where I'm like, Bonnie got put on a chair.
Oh,
Like, she's not that tall.
Where is this?
Where we want.
There it is.
Oh, wow. I don't know how they shot that photo. I'm still only 5 feet tall.
Ralph gave us keys to his car for some reason, and we stole it and parked it outside of his, like, almost we were gonna drive it into his office. Remember that? Yeah, you were there.
It was really dry.
Yeah, you drove.
Oh my God.
We went through a drive-through in Ralph's car.
Did we?
I think we were trying, it doesn't matter. Keep going.
We're just going down memory lane. Look at
It's like walking into the doctor when I want to know it.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of things that were obviously different that I like to think you wouldn't, steal someone's car and drive it to their office now. You can't prove it. But other things like Jonas, you can go offsite to make copies, right? And you couldn't even.
Well, yeah, I mean,
No infrastructure.
it was very low tech, and there wasn't, copy machines or anything. It was, in fact, one of my jobs was at the end of the film, we had to wrap the artwork, and I took the entire collection of every storyboard, original pastel, and all of your artwork and everybody's to Kinko's in Berkeley, in my dad's Wagoneer, and spent 2 nights all night color copying. God, I don't know how much that cost, but one copy, by the way, wasn't even 2. Before we had to box up all the art and send it to Disney because we didn't even have a color copy.
It was very analog.
Yeah, really a lot.
This photo is the cafe, the cafeteria. We did, if you go forward one, you can see what we're all eating. When we had company meetings, we had to take turns getting and bringing the food. Remember that? Oh, this was like,
Yeah, you brought Pop-Tarts.
yeah.
Yeah, we would all take turns with food. But it was very low tech, and I remember, Bob, you said it was something like, the building was like a tech company or something?
It was like a startup. It was this scrappy startup sort of thing where I showed up I remember I shared an office with Tia, and I showed up one day and working. It's got this old crappy the old desk in it, and it's like a desk with a drawer, and it's on a drawing table. And it had a CRT on it, this old monitor that was like a terminal, and I was thinking it'd be some fancy Mac or something, but it's for programming, I can't clearly use that. And I think it was just, it was scrappy and we were scrappy, we just had to figure it out ourselves. It almost had a dorm quality to it, and I think we eventually, in a couple weeks, got a drawing table, proper pencil sharpener, and that stuff. But I think that was the fun of it, because there's me drawing when I had the Cybert action going on.
It was 1994, sorry.
Yeah, it was a time. But I think that was the fun of it. It was what we were doing was the most important part. It wasn't necessarily the stuff around us. It wasn't the fancy offices or anything. We figured things out.
And if you go one more slide, this is Tia. So this is Tia Cratter, who, I mean, huge contribution. But Tia came from Disney, the background painter. I mean, Little Mermaid and so I always thought Tia was a bridge. That's the new things into.
That's sneakers, because she's studying how to do sit for sit.
In the shade on the wear and tear reference.
Short smell.
Yeah.
All right, everybody set up.
Oh, yes, sir.
It's not
Bonnie's doing well.
Speaking of Bonnie, when you came on, you had worked outside, you knew how to make a movie, but also because you were interfacing with Disney, what was it like to try to build trust at Pixar? Like this idea of I've got this new group of people, they don't know me, and I work with Disney, but
Well, I think,
it's just
I think a lot of the lore, and Pete and Andrew will attest to this, a lot of the lore was there was like some kind of animosity, but not really. I mean, they were there to try to help us make it. No one had ever really made an all CG animated film before. I can't tell you how groundbreaking that was at the time. There were two other live action features that were happening simultaneously with Toy Story 1. It was Jurassic Park, the very first one, and Forrest Gump. And just as a comparison, they were sort of groundbreaking for CG, their use of CG animation, obviously, the dinosaurs and all the things in Forrest Gump that in these situations. But, and I don't have this exact statistic, but I think each of those movies had about 100 effect shots in the film. Toy Story had 1,600. Every shot was an effect shot. 1,600 effect shots edited on an Avid, which no feature film had ever been edited completely on an Avid before. So we had all this. I mean, I was crying every day. I said, why are we trying to do everything new for the first time? And it was really challenging. But back to the question, I think Disney really, they knew what they knew. Pixar knew what they knew. I mean, there were experts that knew specific things, but collectively we had never done this all together before. And I like to liken it sometimes to like being on just a dirt road and having to pave it, and every day you come in and, okay, we're gonna put the paving stone here, and we're all gonna take a step there. And sometimes that was the wrong step, and we had to, jag to the right or jag to the left, or,
There's a lot of people that still don't know, we're based in the Bay Area, San Francisco, always have been. And that was probably one of the bigger godsends of why things didn't get shut down, and things were crazy, because we didn't witness it. Because we were too far
out
away.
of sight, out of mind.
Exactly, and so we were able to kind of make our own mistakes, but fix our own mistakes, and learn. And I don't know if we would have been given that freedom had we been had oversight. Not to say anything bad about anybody. We would legitimately make any people with the money nervous.
Yeah.
I'd be nervous.
But that was also a challenge. I remember that we had an accountant who was working with me, and we looked at Pixar had come up with a budget. Well, honestly, Disney made up this number. Nobody really knew what it would cost either. So it's, you can have this much. You can have this much money. And so when I came on, folks, Ralph and Guggenheim, who's the producer, and with John and whatever, put together what they thought the movie would cost. And when the accountant, this guy Joe Murphy, who came on, he had a lot of experience in live action accounting. I remember he came into my office and he goes, when they did the budget, they did it, you guys have done a lot of commercials, short commercial work, things that were a couple of minutes. Well, they thought Toy Story would be, our movie was going to be 75 minutes. That's what we thought the budget would allow. And so they just took the number of minutes, like they did in commercials, and did a multiplier times this many minutes. And this guy Joe said, I've looked at it and it's not that. It's a multiplier. So they've underestimated the cost of the movie to a factor. number. So we're so grossly, every day I'm sitting there counting paper clips.
But
That they had grossly underestimated what it would really cost.
We thought we could get it done for about $450.
But you know what, we made
It's
that
the
work.
cheapest movie we
Ever
ever
made,
made.
probably in life.
So actually, we're just hearing this now for the first time, so we were mindful of money, but now we're realizing we should
It was, yeah, I mean, we had some of the coordinators and the support staff, they would make food at home and bring it in to feed the crew when they were working overtime. Literally.
We had some meeting early on where we calculated, I bet to do this whole film, we probably need seven animators. We literally thought we could do 7.
How many
And
did we have?
we felt like we could do the layout.
With
Very-
one,
very good.
quite good. One person to
We
do
ended up with
layout.
27 animators, and I think about 5 or 6 labs.
But that's unheard of even for layout.
Even now,
Yeah, that's
there's some of
unheard
them. Ash Brennan and Rich Quaid, that's Rich's office.
Tell me what you're holding there for.
That's Pete right after he got off his tour from New Kids on the Block.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember walking my first day at work and I saw this standee like Joey McIntyre from New Kids on the Block with your face, and
Yes.
he looked just like him.
That's the Fred Flintstone doll.
That's right.
That you're holding there.
Guess what?
That's the Fred Flintstone doll.
Oh, yeah. We were trying to animate Woody.
Remember that
And there was no Woody at that time. Nowadays, you can go to the store and buy a Woody, but there was no Woody, so we should have made
You can pull one from the front row right now.
I sewed this body, and I wanted something heavy for the head, so I ripped another toy off and put it on there. And then we throw it around.
And he was kind of the right proportions. That was,
Does that begin with mutant toy switch?
No, Mutant Toys was Andrew's real-life childhood.
Look at Joe and I always argued that the normal kid was sick. Because that's what every kid did.
That's right. That's right.
And the
Absolutely.
weird kid was in. Treated his toys so perfectly.
this is still debated in the hall.
Still are.
You did, a couple of us have mentioned, mistakes and big mistakes, but what are some of the biggest mistakes or unheard mistakes, the mistakes we never talk about, the mistakes that dare not speak their name? What?
I don't know. I feel like all our mistakes were very.
Happy accident.
Happy accident.
There's a lot of stuff that we would catch now that we didn't. There's, if you remember, Woody is sneaking he's in a cup, sneaking into the pizza restaurant. And in the restaurant, you can see through the glass, and everyone in there is completely frozen.
Yes.
So we just forgot. I think probably in the tool that we used to animate, you couldn't see through stuff.
That's right.
So that big glass looked like cement, so we didn't bother to animate it, but nobody noticed.
Really?
Even the shot we were watching the clip reel where he says, "You are a sad, strange little man, you have my pity." If you look at his helmet, reflected in his helmet is Woody, but Woody is just frozen in one pose. Like that the whole time.
Yeah.
Because,
And I think at the time we were just seduced by the reflection.
look, reflection.
Yeah. Shiny things work.
I don't know if those were mistakes.
Learnings,
Yeah.
things or things that it sounds like
We,
didn't matter that much in the grand scheme of things.
Well, we had limited time, so.
Yes.
I just remember we would try so many things, and they would be valid today. We didn't know our tone yet. And,
Yeah.
like I remember pitching the very first time we saw Sid in VR, and it wasn't even Combat Carls before we knew we couldn't get G.I. Joe. That was from a real story that I had done with my friends in my backyard, where we had strapped an M80 to G.I. Joe. Someone in a running pose and said, "Run, Joe, run!" Amazingly, Joe never made it in our play. And so that cracked John up, so we put that in there. But I boarded that scene the first time, and that used to go somewhere different. There was a big boom, and then all the shrapnel hit the roof. And all the toys looked up and they should follow the sound of the shrapnel. And then a G.I. Joe head just went boom right on the ceiling. Save yourself. I still think it's funny. Why do you
Like Mr. Potato, we really couldn't use, at that time we actually tried to get Barbie later.
Oh no, we had a Barbie head, we had a Barbie makeup, because those things scared the crap out.
Oh, yeah, it was like severed head.
That was Joe put that right there in Sid's room, all messed up.
But I think we tried to get bar games for the.
but tell them let us.
use it,
Yeah.
yeah.
But how she went.
Ralph would always say, oh, I just had a big talk with Mr. Potato Head's lawyer. And, so it was
Some of
negotiation.
some like Slinky and some of those things we were able to get, but we
Yeah.
tried those other ones, and some of them we couldn't, some of them, we made it work with what we were able to get. That made the story work. Wow.
We had, the original pizza restaurant was a pizza putt.
Pizza putt.
So we had a whole sequence where Woody was trying to escape Scud by running through the different pizza putt, like the windmill.
Forgot about that.
There was one, I remember Ash Brandon boarded this where the end was if you get a hole in one, the clam opens up and there's a mermaid. That was your sort of reward for getting a hole in one. And Woody hid in there. And then Scud could figure it out and he'd grab the ball and put it in, and then Woody was kind of posing like I thought it was really fun.
I'm sure it was just too expensive to make, but I was gonna money to make one clam in a
And
room.
I was trying to remember, okay, so the aliens came out of a meeting at Disney,
Near the end.
and Chris Sanders of Lilo and Stitch
Yeah.
fame came up with the alien.
Yeah.
The sort of whole cult.
And we all kind of started riffing like, it was a gag session.
Yeah.
So we'd go down there sometimes when we needed to make something funnier. That was, well, it was in the last 8 months.
But that's what I'm saying, because we didn't share a lot until
Yeah.
at some point.
But then it was like, because we just said, what's special about the inside of Pizza Planet? And then suddenly when we went to Claw, and then once it was a cult, we were in, we got it.
But that was one of the most complex, I mean, that and the end, the chase at the end, the Pizza Planet and the chase
I
at the
remember,
end were the two most
we had
complex
to
for us.
board that so fast, we had outlined it. And so I sat in a room, a windowless room, probably with no venting, it seemed like, with a Sharpie, just roughing out in circles and lines what the shots would be. And like a factory, every storyboard artist on the team would come in and take the next 6 shots. And I had such a Sharpie high by the end of that days, just like, and then they do this, and then we did that whole chase, like in like just machine factory through.
These are Joe Ram's storyboards, by the way. And brilliant, or had a story, and such a fuck.
And Joe was somebody who had, you were the other one that's making movie experience, but Joe had something.
Well, I haven't really done, feature work, but Joe obviously had, had a lot of feature animation, especially stories. And, he knew how to do that. He had come off of Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, I was working on the
Done
story.
right before us. And Beauty and the Beast, but I'm saying he had done all this kind of work, and I remember would give me tutorials in the evenings about exactly how we, doing the story reel and how to get that up, and I had no idea. And he goes, well, first you couldn't have done that without Joe's help. He wore many hats.
Everyone wore many hats. And Jonas, you were talking about, you got to wear a lot of hats too, as an intern at the time. What was your first day like? What was like coming to work there for the first time?
Well, I mean, like I said, I grew up loving Disney, the Disney movies, and Disney. I wanted to be an animator when I was a kid, but realized very young I was not an artist, and just dreamed of working for Disney. And at film school, I had heard about Pixar through some of the commercials, and literally lucked out and called them. I don't know, maybe even you answered. I don't even remember.
No, I wasn't there yet. I started 2 weeks before you.
And I just remember walking into this place and seeing the sculpts and you guys running around, and Bob probably on a scooter, and dogs, and the artwork, and just the weirdest place I've
Babies.
Babies, your daughter,
My
yeah.
daughter was born right
I remember
in the
that.
movie.
I would have to get the bottles sometimes. But I always thought of it like, it felt like I found what I used to say, like a punk rock version of Disney, how I pictured Walt Disney do in the 30s and 40s. It felt like a really weird, cool echo of that. I just fell in love with it. So I don't know, my first day, honestly, I remember getting lunch. Seeing well, the meeting, but bringing lunch to Steve Jobs that day, and John Lasseter, Bill Reeves.
Yeah.
I was kind of nervously putting around, just trying to make sure I was helpful. I literally swept the floors, if I had to.
I remember, I was gonna say, the first day I showed up, I think I went down by the story, there was that triangle room.
Yeah.
And there's this metal, kind of a teeter-totter.
Yes.
Like a rocking.
Yeah.
And around the corner, there's 2 built in. I was going up and down on the teeter-totter, and it was Pete and Joe, and I thought, they're gonna hit the road. this is so dangerous. And I thought, this is
They weren't
great.
small guys either.
It was so,
It was just cool and weird and
Yeah,
weird stuff everywhere.
very creative, very.
You know, Bob's the reason we have so many scooters in the studio.
Yeah, it was, I kind of created a greater scooter fleet. It was,
We would scooter through the hallways.
Oh, yeah.
I think
Because
the
they had,
video would be.
because he brought so many in.
and the building at the time was perfect. The carpet was, so good for racing down the hallway in scooters. There were several blind corners. And so those were the challenges, but they were so much fun to zip through. So you just had bells, you just ring the bell, call out, and you can get through. But to get across the building, that was the way to go.
There were some blood stains on that blanket.
There was. We created a track, and then there was a race. You remember this? There was a list of
Times, trials.
and of course, Lassiter is very competitive, so he was going, and you, and
Well, I don't remember, Tom Porter was the most competitive, one of our tech guys that helped invent the whole look at CG. And
There it is.
That's him right
Tom
there.
Bill.
And he made a number that nobody could beat for the longest time. And it was about 11:30 at night.
yeah, we were working.
John was animating or rendering something, and he had to wait for it to render, so he got on a scooter, and he was just determined to beat it. And he beats it, and he calls up Tom at midnight, who lived a half an hour away.
Yeah.
That just read his time and hung up. And I swear to God, 30 minutes later, Tom shows up in his pajamas.
He drove from
It's,
Marin over the bridge.
And we're just still working, and we're just hearing, who's bam, who's bam. And he beat it. I wasn't gonna leave.
That was our premiere, that was like there, right next to our.
Oh, yeah,
Lizzie's
Lizzie's
Toy Story.
El Capitan,
Yeah, Mel.
That's cool.
No, that's what was there. That's where Jimmy Kimmel is now, but
Yeah.
it wasn't.
No, they recreated that to a whole toy, and to the Pizza Planet or something, the whole, right? The whole-
Yeah, there was stores you
Fun
went up
house.
and Army Man were in there and they
A
had
whole Toy Story Funhouse next to El Capitan.
That was really crazy.
Yeah, it's great. That went on for weeks.
Look at the cars.
Funhouse.
Man, the things in the 80s.
Maya, can you go back to? I have a question. It was with Friva and.
Friva Needs.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, maybe, but we want to prevent, maybe it's that. Maybe it's more one.
That's another thing we totally underestimated, the movie
Meters?
time.
Oh, yeah, of course.
We ended up going out.
There, that one.
This one?
So my question about this, I saw this and I was wondering, is this a staged photo? Is this something from the press? Because it looks like this is Triva and Daisy, and it looks like they're giving you a fix. And I've never had them smile. So, you're like, hey,
Mark,
fix. But we used to, if there was an animation fix, part of the job was like, it's write it up, print it out, and hand it to the animator so they could do the fix, and then I'd go back and we'd enter in the database.
But you can see this cord back behind my head. That was one of the guys, Bill, ran a cord from the PA system to my office. So late at night, I could play Muzak over the PA and make my announcements.
Yeah. We do, if you work late enough and suddenly hear people, clean up our bond, clean up our bond.
I just want to say, I had to fight to get that, any kind of system going, when I came.
Oh, yeah.
For interconnection,
What was
The
it
intercom system, because I said, we're making a movie here, guys, we can't just sit in our offices and pretend like nobody else exists.
There was no cell phones
There was
then.
no cell phones, there was no,
Email each other.
yeah.
People would rather go get someone, was it because ILM had one?
ILM had an intercom system, and they said, we're not ILM, we're gonna do this differently. The woman who was our one support person when we first started, Deirdre Weir, who we adore, she would actually have to get up from her desk and run down the hall to tell people that you needed them, or run around. I said, this is not right, we can't do this, we need some kind of system to.
This resistance to sort of systems and structures, and we don't want to be tech, we don't want to be Hollywood, we don't want to be Disney. How alive is that today in this speech of us? Like, obviously things have changed where we would never print out and hand somebody a fix right now. There's a whole automated process. And it's still fun. We're still pushing back though.
There's still that. in the
Structured
future.
system.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So.
It's got its own culture, though. It always did.
Well, movie making's a bit of a maverick business, and I'm always saying to crews, like, you want to start your own barter system behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Get things really get things done.
Yeah.
Do we have the, I thought I remember the slide of the lines of ballot for the first Woody session.
Oh,
Oh, they are. Maya, can you hear us? I
That's a
just-
slide.
Here, yeah. So
I thought this
those
was
were
very
scripted lines that we gave Tom to read for bolstering recordings for Woody. But those ones that's my handwriting on the bottom, 10, 11, and 12. Those what he made up.
Yeah.
And that's me writing down what he had said. And they're now lore.
Were those all part of the toy? Will they become part of the
Yeah.
toy?
I don't know if every one of them, but a lot did, but the improvs were, that was from his first session.
I'd like to join your posse.
He read them all a couple times and then he just kept going. Yeah.
It was so funny.
So we were going to have raw, blam, blam, blam. How would you make it?
Well, I
actually like
the best of all of this steak in my boot was this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
That's your model packet, so.
Yeah, that was Bud's first sketch, and then I went back and Ralph painted the color of the top one, and then I went through it and added a few things. We kept changing the scale, right, because we weren't sure when to get the right size. Remember, Buzz was tiny, originally, and then we got that too.
We kept thinking like the 80s G.I. Joe dolls.
Yes, the smaller figures, right, but
And then
you never seen the
someone
shot.
had to scale them.
Yeah, you can see them in shot, they're like two shots, but yeah, that was, Bud kind of did the sculpt and the basic design, and then I came back. That was the model package back,
Yeah.
kind of rough.
The model packets were sort of the blueprints that Bob and the art department would drop, and then they would go to the modeling department and would build 3D
I
models.
mean, traditionally, you do these drawings that animators would draw, and they had to be kind of bulletproof in terms of the way ease to draw and animate, but we weren't doing that. We were building things to be built, and so there were sculpts that were scanned, and we were doing plans, like there's Bo Peep, and that was digitized, but back in the day, you had to, we had to figure out what does the model need to build something.
Yeah.
They're like three-dimensional plans, front, top, side.
I think that was the picture on the right, wasn't that one of the first things that test animation, when he was on the side of the bed?
It's a scissor.
Like 22.
Woody on the side, you know, by the bedside.
Yeah, yeah, this one.
It was animated.
Yeah. And also
on
just,
the upper side, that's the screen from the scene that I did, where Woody's under the, yeah, he's under the crate. I think.
Oh, that was later though.
Yeah.
I know, but I'm talking about that one where he was on the side of the bedside. I thought that was one of the-
This is your shot. This is Pete, Dr. Animation up here.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone have notes for Pete?
Yeah. File fix, capital,
Yeah.
bracket.
and that's Buzz,
But
right?
then, just going back, Bob, you were talking about the model drawings, they would then be handed to the technical folks who build them, and they would get out their calipers. And I remember, wasn't it Rich Rick Taylor was like, should I measure the inside or the outside of this line?
They're measuring my line, so I made it thicker and thicker, figure it out. Now, I think that was the thing, and everybody, it's not like they had off-the-shelf software, they're figuring this out when they're building it. They are creating these things, and without the tools, they're inventing them, so, and everybody was doing it different.
That's exactly it.
Yep. Fine as you're saying, building the plane while you're flying.
That's right.
I think what I remember, and these pictures are good indicators of it, is this very loose artistic community, right? Snatched into some version of a tech company. So very, very woo, loose, and very specific at the same time. And I mean, obviously that's still what we do every day, but at the time, this feeling of like the quality that went into each thing being, you know, we gotta, if you're gonna give a note, it's gotta be the right note. I remember just feeling like, okay, I thought I was a high achiever at school and everything, and I was like top of my class, and then I get to pick something like, oh my goodness. I remember Rick Sayre, he, when the first time I took notes for a lighting review, and I was so proud of myself, and I wrote everything, and I spelled all right, and he did a reply all to my notes and corrected like all of it. And it's like, actually, it's the KT with the blah blah blah. And I'm like, oh geez, you know, I was, you know, reminded daily of like just the level of specific, detailed quality in this sea of like chaotic creativity. It was just this interesting constant juxtaposition that you know.
Yeah, people often ask me, well, it must be so fun, or like, I said, yeah, but it's kind of like earned fun because it's more like an Olympic village. It's more like people that are just at the top of their game, type A, and they're all in one room together, just trying to like beat their personal best at every second.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, but you're right. But that just makes me think of all the crazy stuff and Pop-Tarts and crazy lunches and dogs. There was and still is this commitment to craft of just sweating every detail.
Yeah.
To make it as good as it could be. And I know, you're right, there's stuff that didn't get finished or maybe polished or that was revealed, but I still think there was this precision of getting the best idea up there.
Yeah.
And, I don't know, it just was a real cool idea. And it was just thinking of these slides, this high-tech computer scientist next to stop-motion animators or someone from Skellington.
Yeah.
Just this bizarre circus of people that came together to,
You kind of figure out that language between tech and art.
yeah.
And how do we talk to each other? It's like,
Everybody really open to whatever note made it better. So, I mean, even when Rick did the reply all, it was like, this is not a spirit of let me shame you. It was like, what, everybody's open to learning all the time, the thing that's gonna make it better. And that sort of, it permeates through everything. It's very like, it's a notes culture, and it's still very much.
Yeah.
I think there were maybe 5 people on the animation crew that had used computers before. Almost everybody else came from either hand-drawn or stop motion. And so we had to train them to use, because if you've animated on a computer before, it's very different than drawing. It's not as intuitive for most people, unless you've done it for a long time. So it would take a good year before people would really start to be able to express themselves fully. And we had just amassed a crew when we ran into huge story problems, and they shut the whole thing down, and they wanted to move us all to LA for this. So I couldn't blame them. This is, the Disney brass were like, this movie is a disaster. We're gonna fire all the animators, and you crew that are coming up the story, you're gonna move to LA. And
We didn't buy that.
no. I don't know who's responsible for putting the brakes on that. That bought us a few weeks of reprise, and we said, because I think we were trying to address notes that Disney was giving us, and that's, I don't want to blame them on that. The movie was bad. We then said, all right, it's our fault. If we're going to go down, let's go down doing something we believe in. So we took whatever time we had.
Which kind of broke the shackle of worrying about what anybody else wanted and just go, what do we want?
Right.
And that kind of made us think smarter as a collective, creative band members and songwriters.
And then we showed the film after that, and I guess there was enough there that they're like, oh, all right, keep going. It wasn't
But
like
that respite, don't you think that respite kind of bought some time for the animators to get better at
Yeah.
on their stuff? Yeah, with tools.
But everyone,
That's what God said.
if we fire everybody, we're gonna have to train, we're gonna need another year to train new people.
Yeah.
I think everybody was really underestimating in general what it would take.
Yeah.
And I think as we realized what it would take, it was, obviously it was gonna take longer and cost more money. That's just the way it works. And I think some of that is the reality of what it was. But I think when we were able to wow them with what it could be, that, we persevered. I mean, we persevered with it and were able to kind of, and at that time, being in the San Francisco area, it seemed like that, I felt like we might as well be in the middle of nowhere sometimes. It was hard just to get people to come, we needed more of this type of, person or more, and it was challenging. And you have to remember that. I mean, getting those people, and they all had to be trained, they all had to be,
We've now made, what, 20 films? Like, we've learned to recognize the path that, and Joe used to say this, like, he was the only one that, I remember him saying this in Toy Story, every movie gets to a where's the land moment, where it's like, you're Columbus, you're on a boat, you've told this crew there's a new world out there, and they see nothing. It's been months and months and months, and they go, where's the land? And you just lie, and you go, it's there. And eventually, something does show. And for us, it was not just the Army Man sequence, but I think it was the Buzz Lightyear meeting Woody moment, or Under the Truck moment probably.
Yeah.
And there's enough land that suddenly everybody you think has been against you or not behind you sees it. And then you get like all this wind behind your sails, and you get this
All right, we'll keep rowing.
whole other army of people that helping you that you just only because they just didn't see it either. And that happened. Now you just know that that's coming.
Did you guys feel that in execution? No, I'm asking questions, sorry. Did you feel that in execution? Like, because all these scenes were so great, Iron Man and Under the Truck, you were toy. But I remember watching it pre-made when we was getting ready for a preview when he's under the thing.
We had cracked it.
And I remember feeling, oh wow, there is a level of nuance that even being closer, I didn't realize was in this. Was that a scene that felt as right?
Well, this gets into the weeds and writing and stuff.
Yeah.
the last sequence to get written and really figured out was when they were in the crate.
Yeah.
in
Like
1920
before the
execution.
execution, yeah, great.
And by then I was writing full on, Joss had left, and it sounds crazy, but we never talked out loud about what this movie was about. And we all just intuitively got it, because you get it when you're like 2 or 5, like suddenly you have a new brother, a new sister, and you're jealous, and you want to replace it. Suddenly there's a new kid, and you were the popular kid, and suddenly you're not. Like, nobody needed to go into psychoanalysis or, Jung or any of this stuff to like figure out what we were talking about. So it all was very honest and natural, but suddenly we had to have our characters talk about it. And I remember like screaming just in frustration with all of us, like my memories, like Joe and John and you around my shoulders, like, what are we trying to have him say? And then finally, it just was, and to me, it's always been my North Star, about how simple can I find it again with another character, where they don't go monologue, there's not an I want song, they don't say all this stuff, it's not self-aware of the audience, it's a character just saying in their own limited way of understanding the world, the way they really are being vulnerable. And he said, I'm the one that should be strapped to that rocket. What he said. And that was his way of saying, I've always been insecure. I've always not. And when we finally had that line, I was like, I get it. Now everybody out of my room. I wrote it. But that was like the last thing to solidify.
There are also some great discoveries in animation. I remember one early on review when it was an animator, Mark Oftedal. And so we had done all, movement, which is based on years and years of history and studying great Disney films. And he had done this one scene of Woody just more or less holding, but his eyes just flipped back and forth. And that was a level of detail that you couldn't do in hand drawings. Just because the line looked horrible. And my hair stood up on it. It looked like he was alive.
It's what real people do.
It was alive. And how he discovered that, I don't know. But there were like...
I'm literally going to tell you that I'm not... His office was next to mine, and he showed me the shot, and I said, you should make his eyes go. I'm not kidding, but he's the one that made it work,
Yeah, we can't end this conversation without talking about slide number 40.
Yes.
Or 49. Because I just want to say really quickly, because I know we're wrapping up in time. Whenever you're doing something that you've never done before, you need ringers. You've got to have some ringers.
Yeah.
And these 4 people in particular, who are no longer with us on this earth, Ralph Eggleston, Joe Grant, Bud Lucky, and Glenn McQueen, were our ringers. I mean, they were really, the movie would not exist without them. Ralph was an amazing production designer. I called Disney and said, please send us somebody with a clue that knows how to be an art director. It felt like we were just blessed with Ralph. And Joe Grant was the heart and soul of Pixar. He made the world go round. And then Glenn McQueen, when everybody else was animating 2 feet a week, Glenn was animating 20 feet a week.
Yeah.
We would have never finished on time and been in the theater without
When
Glenn.
he finished his shot, he'd be like, we got 2 more days, I'll do another one.
We loved him and missed him.
Bud was, he basically taught me how to count. He introduced all these great Sesame Street shorts.
Yeah.
He was Ladybug's Picnic and all those,
Yeah.
He was a great designer and animator. He struggled with the computer quite a bit. He didn't like it.
But he was at that time. I think he was one of the oldest people there. He was sort of our rock, right? He just was the strong, silent type, and just was such a.
And it's also a testament to, like, everybody always, we do it to bands, to movies, like, you want to give credit to one sole person. And I look at this, and it's like looking at your kids. You can see so many elements of, not just you and your spouse or other ancestors or siblings that just contributed to making the identity that they are. And I look at that and I go, that's Toy Story. Like, it's all the names everybody's ever talked about historically, and it's also them. And it's true of that of any film. There's this collage of a very particular, usually a dozen people that it just would not have its identity without those people. And so, yeah, it's nice to.
I don't think Toy Story, I don't think Pixar were without these 4. Right.
Yeah. I mean, And kind of on the note of what stays with us from these great talents is 30 years later, this is kind of the last question, what does Toy Story mean to each of us now, 30 years on? I mean, for me, it's been, I know that a lot of these pictures, and thanks for bearing with us with our family album slideshow, and a lot of these pictures you see, you know, a lot of talented people, you all see a lot of men, and I love them, and yet I had, what's not in a lot of these pictures, you do see Bonnie, I have a lot of incredible female role models on this movie, and it was my first model, actually, of my first real job, and Bonnie Arnold was there every day, like, pumping, you had newborn Lily, like, my first model of a working producer was a working parent producer, and so there's never a question in my mind that I could do having babies and, you know, making movies and coming back and coming out, and so I had these great role models, and I really feel like it's helped kind of define my career, and never make me wonder, like, oh, what can you do, you know?
There are a lot of good women behind the scenes.
A lot of good women behind the scenes. They're not in the pictures, but trust me, it was happening. That, you know, it was happening. What is that? 30 years later, who thoughts? Final thoughts?
You know what? I just have to say that, and this is an homage to everybody on this stage, that John and I started to have this conversation, and it means so much to me today that I love the movie. It means everything to me, a special time in my life. But John and I said that Buzz and Woody would not exist if it wasn't for us. And Buzz and Woody are just, they're part of the popular culture.
Yeah.
Can you imagine the world without Buzz and Woody?
You know, I mean, looking at Ralph and Joe and Glenn and Bud and, you know, being up here with you all, you know, and coming in, as I said, as a young kid out of school, Toy Story is everything. I mean, it's my whole life. And I ended up producing Toy Story 4, and it's like this dream. I never dreamed I'd be doing any of this. And, yeah, I went to the park last night and see, even that little sizzle thing where you see the kids walking with Jesse and Woody and Buzz, seeing everyone out here. I don't even have words for it, to be honest, because I'm just so proud to be part of it. And it's the greatest thing that's ever happened. So it means everything. Thank you.
I'm grateful to be with everybody on that. I look at his faces, and it's just those moments with Joe, such a good mentor, Ralph, loved Bud and Glenn. I mean, it was a special time. It's one of those things where it was so we didn't know it at the time. Right? You look back and you go, wow, that was a big pivotal moment. But and I think part of it was like in Cars, you know, the journey is the reward, and making that was very special. I think about my kids growing up and having them think about what they watch and so forth. But Toy Story was a great learning curve and so lovely to be with.
Every audience preview screening of the next Toy Story movie, and I see a person that's been raised on it, that's now a parent, showing their kids or their nephew or their niece, having them pass it on because it's almost like a sport or a baseball thing that they just want to be there and experience with them. Like that just moves me to death. It's who would have ever expected something like that? It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I similarly, you know, grew up on the great films of Walt Disney, and it's what lit me up. Watch Snow White and Cinderella and Pinocchio and Dumbo, and to have contributed to a film that is now part of that is, I never dreamed that I would be able to say that, and it's pretty wild.
We are so grateful that you spent part of your D23 time with us. There is a lot more Toy Story. There's some archive here. There's some archive stuff.
If you go to the Pixar booth, we've got a lot more archival stuff, that the work from the show, some of the artwork. So please go take a look at it.
Yeah.
A lot of great drawings of Bob's.
Yeah. It'll be all Bob drawings and all storyboards and everything. We're so appreciative of the warm reception. Have a great time at D23. Toy Story.
Just wait, I'm back.
Thanks for watching. Keep following along for everything that's happened at D23.